welcome to Fine is a Four-Letter Word. My guest today is Kimberly Samson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lori, for having me. It's fun to be on the other side for a change.
Yes, because we originally met when I was a guest on your podcast. And You're still doing that, right? The podcast?
Yes, the Midlife podcast is still ongoing, as is my midlife. So
Right. We are still there. Still in that stage. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but we're not going to dwell on that because I know that was and we'll get to talking about your book too, which is kind of a little bit of a rage against the midlife movement, if you will, which I love. We'll get into that. But I want to start first with the question that I always ask, and that's, what were the values and beliefs that you were raised with that contributed to you becoming who you are?
Wow, that is a fascinating question. The values and beliefs. I think one of the interesting parts of this time in our life is reflecting back on our upbringing. I think that in this moment where we have the opportunity to have this expansion, this huge moment of growth in our own lives, it's natural to look back on our childhood. And I think that for me, it wasn't very structured. So I don't know that I can answer that question with some sort of value or belief. I think that there were messages that were delivered, but not as some sort of character building exercise. I think the messages were all external and by modeling rather than by true teaching, which is something I've tried to change with my children, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And I think a lot of times what we pick up from childhood is not explicitly stated. It's, of course, by watching our role models, whether those are our parents or I was going to say colleagues, but friends, schoolmates, teachers, comes from everywhere.
Yeah. And I think a lot of those beliefs are just mostly expectations of what we're supposed to be when we're grown up. And I feel like for our generation, we were in such a rush to grow up. And there was not a lot of time growing up, or at least effort in the growing up. It was just like you were supposed to be grown up. And the expectations were, for me and the, way I grew up, that there were certain things I was supposed to do. There was a roadmap. And there wasn't the encouragement or opportunity to necessarily take a different path. That didn't even know was possible.
Yeah. Well, I remember in our pre-show call, you mentioned that there were expectations that were set for you that you didn't, there wasn't a different path. You weren't shown different paths. You were just like, this is your path, walk it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll even share a funny but awful story. Is I am the eldest child in my family, and my younger brother was going to be bar mitzvah. And I was like, well, wait a second. I wanted a bat mitzvah. My mom goes, you don't need a bat mitzvah. You're going to have a wedding. So there was it was, that's a good one, right? So there's going to be a big party. There's going to be a big party, but your big party is going to be because you're going to get married, not because you're going to participate in an important religious ritual. I was like,
now when you say that, I'm thinking, wow, I wish I had your mom, because I fought tooth and nail because I did not want one. And they forced me to do it. I didn't want it.
And now what do you think about the fact that you did it? Is it still are you still angry that you had to do it, or you don't appreciate that you did?
I have let go of the anger because that's not serving, but I don't look back on it and say, boy, that was a good decision. I'm glad they made me do that. No. I felt like I was disrespected for my viewpoints because I was only a kid, and I get that they were trying to do what they thought was right for me at the time. But my views around religion were not respected because I was only 13.
It's so funny because I'm totally having a mom moment like I did this morning with my 11-year-old. Okay. So you're going to hate this, but I feel like we're friendly enough that I can only be myself. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Right.
So for instance, this morning, my 11-year-old who stayed home sick yesterday and then had a miracle cure, as 11-year-olds do, after a day off from school, got dressed in shorts, and it's January. And I understand, I live in Los Angeles, not really inclement weather, but it's cold for us here. He gets dressed in shorts. He hasn't worn shorts the entire school year, but today he chooses to wear shorts. And I said, what are you doing? You can't wear shorts. And he's like, it's not your decision. And I laughed. And I said, you're quite mistaken. It is my decision. You're not leaving the house in shorts.
Yeah.
So to your 13-year-old self, while I admire that you were forming your own opinions, I don't know that you're part of a family with traditions, and the tradition in your family at that moment was at 13, you participate in this ritual and you get to change whatever that is. And if it's positive or negative, when we grow up, we get to change what we do or don't like about ourselves, right?
Right.
Or lean into what we do like, change what we don't like. So I don't know. I mean, I think
interesting.
I think you're a rebel. I think that's awesome. I think your rebellion started early, and I think that's a good quality.
Absolutely. But back to you. So
told you, I don't like the other side of the microphone is hard.
So then just, I have to ask, did you have a big party for your wedding?
It was the wedding of my mother's dreams.
Okay.
For sure. It was pretentious, over the top, ridiculous, dumb waste of money. Everyone says it was like the greatest party they've ever been to.
Mm-hmm. But you didn't feel like it was that great of a party for you.
Unlike brave Lori, I did not even understand that I had a choice in the matter. And frankly, I think I went along willingly because I didn't even stop to consider that I would maybe want something different. So I can't really blame the powers that be. Never even occurred to me to question it.
But something that is different, maybe a little different, is that you're still married.
I am, super happily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because this is my other, so one of the things that I write about in the book, I write about marriage a lot because I think midlife marriage is like a really tricky thing to discuss. I think there's a lot of pitfalls. I think there's a lot of unhappy people that are right and need to make changes. I think there are a lot of unhappy people that are blaming external forces for their unhappiness. I talk about marriage a lot, and I really try to walk, it's like a hard dance because I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to discount anybody's feelings. I cannot judge what somebody else's situation is. But one of the things that I say in the book about marriage is I think that having a wedding is the dumbest thing ever, and nobody should ever have a wedding. I think you should have a very small ceremony where you have your closest family and friends. And then if you make it 25 years and if you are gloriously happy and you want to keep going, then you deserve the big party. That's how I would flip that.
I like that. That makes sense to me.
Unfortunately for me, I would have that big party.
So you could still have the big party now.
I could, but I've got 3 children. I could, but I don't want it, right? I'm just saying, if there was ever time to be a celebration, right? That would be a good time to do it.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
So I'm just flipping that, ritual, I guess. But I don't need the external validation.
Let's have all the parties. Let's have all the parties that we can have. Let's have a wedding party. Let's have a 20-year and 25, and let's just keep parties going.
Yeah. All kinds of, and I guess it depends on your definition of party, because I kind of feel like I'm sort of throwing a party for myself every day. Every day is pretty entertaining. I don't know that I need to always have guests, because those are a lot of people to feed and clean up after. So I don't know that I always want to have guests.
That is true.
I like my own party.
True. Yeah. All right. So you mentioned how you followed on this path because that's the path that was laid out for you and you never bothered to question. But at some point you did. Where did that come up? What happened that you went, wait a second, I don't have to follow this. There's more than one path. Maybe I want to go down a different one.
Yeah. I don't know that I followed a different path, except that I very intentionally confirmed my path. And that's not a cop-out, because there was a moment in my life, and I talk about this in the book, where I was definitely having a midlife crisis. And that crisis was a crisis of self and not a crisis of my external situation. My crisis of self was, I really think, it sounds awful to say, but I'm just saying invalidating myself. And I hope that everybody listening can validate themselves. I know I'm really smart. I know I'm really capable. I know I can learn anything. I know that I had tremendous opportunity in careers over the time of my life. And being a person that maybe was trained, but also felt very validated by things like grades and how much money I made and the titles that I've held, came to a certain point where I went, well, holy shit, I'm wife and mom. And I would say to myself, that feels like that's it. And that's I'm kind of shameful in saying that, because I'm very good at those things too. I'm really proud of the family we've built, and I don't want to minimize the efforts of being a stay-at-home mom, which I am. I mean, I work from home. I still consider myself a stay-at-home mom, but it was really like a disappointment in myself. And I was kind of being an asshole to myself.
Were you disappointed because you felt like you should be doing a lot more?
I think I was.
Like you should be having
disappointed.
Like a big external career, like being a mom and
I think it was like a lot of anger, right? It was a lot of anger because I don't think that I think it's a lot to ask of women, and people do it, and good for you. But I think it's a lot to ask of women to have a high-powered career, to be exceptional in your career, and then also be available 24/7 for your family. And even when I was working full-time for a short stint outside of the home when two of my children were little, at least it was this way for me. I still was the one that took responsibility. It wasn't placed on me. I took the responsibility of the marketing, the cooking, the laundry, so all those kind of very traditional female roles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think the disappointment myself was that I hadn't continued on that path when I did go back to work to stay on it. It was just kind of like a feeling of emptiness, of not really appreciating all the things that I was doing, not taking the opportunity that I had to continue developing, even if it didn't look powerful to people outside. So I had stopped learning. I had stopped producing anything. I was really bored, and I was bored with myself. And I think that was the shame of it too.
Yeah, I was just going to say right before you said it, it sounds like you were bored.
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of women get there, and instead what I'm proud of is I took responsibility for, I'm bored, not people are making me bored.
Right. Well, everything comes back to ourselves, because we only have
hopefully
the ability to, the only thing we can change is ourselves. And in order to change outside circumstances, we have to change ourselves. And so, yeah, it all comes back to that personal responsibility.
Yeah, and I think that's what I try to do in the book. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be pissed off when they read the book. A lot of people are going to stop reading it. A lot of people are going to be offended by it. And they're going to be offended by it because basically my message is, in a loving, non-judgmental way, is shut the fuck up and take responsibility for your life. Create the life you want. If you don't know what you want, that's okay. Just start walking a path. The light, the path illuminates itself. Just get moving. Just do something.
Yeah. It's right. Taking that first step. There's that Martin Luther King quote about the staircase. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step.
Yeah, I believe in that.
Put yourself in action, more reveals itself to what's your next step. What's your next step? And I talk about this a lot too, and probably talked about it on your show, about finding the ability to get quiet enough to hear your own inner voice. And what is it telling you to do? Because that's how you figure out what steps to take. That's taking inspired action instead of just running down a path like your hair's on fire because somebody told you to go that way.
Yeah. And I think I certainly feel this way, that I lost touch with that voice inside, didn't trust that voice inside. And I think getting back in touch with that voice is a really powerful moment in midlife. And also not to blame the voice and not to think the voice has all the answers either. Just whatever. This is what we're doing today. This is what it feels. This is what feels right today. And I have the right to change my mind if something else feels different later. Yes.
That's another point too, that people get in this place. They're like, well, every decision or every choice is forever.
Right.
And they put so much weight on it that they're afraid to make the wrong choice
Yeah.
And so they make no choice. And this just came up in conversation earlier today. Somebody asked me if I like Rush, the group Rush. And
Mm-hmm.
I bring up that song. There's a line in one of their songs: if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Totally. I totally agree with
Yeah.
that sentiment. And to not feel
Yeah.
like flaky if you don't want to make a choice or you change your mind. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, who are you answering to?
Right.
You're only answering to your like inner core.
Right. And to your to what you said earlier too, like fuck them if them being whoever is outside of you, if they don't agree with you or they don't see your way of thinking. And it's not your job to convince people.
Right.
If they want to come along for the ride, great. If they don't, that's okay too. But I love that.
I mean, all I can offer
critics.
Yeah. Yeah, all I can do is offer, and it is opinion. I'm not a psychologist. I like have no right to tell, I'm not trying to tell you how to live your life or what to do with your life. I'm just giving you my opinion. I happen to have very strong opinions. I tend to convey them in a slightly humorous and entertaining way. I use a lot of stories. I use a lot of my own fuck ups. And I just hope people have a good time and are willing to wince a little bit and look inside. That's just what I'm hoping for you when you read it. It's just go, oh, yeah, that actually hurt. That stung a little. Okay, why did that sting? Instead of reacting and saying, I'm an asshole, which you're welcome to that thought too, I guess. So.
Right. Although that does not contribute to growth. So if you're looking,
that's not my problem. That's their problem, right? And I just
no. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying
yeah.
if somebody's reading it and saying "fuck you," that you're an idiot, that doesn't contribute to their growth,
right?
As opposed
and
to
there's actually
looking at it and going, "Huh, that's an interesting way of looking at things. I don't agree, but let me think about that for a second and see what you can take away from that."
Yeah, I think there's one of the essays in the book. I say, that old saying like, "Don't shoot the messenger." Mm-hmm. It's like if somebody's willing to say to you, "Hey, that wasn't cool the way you handled it," or "I'm not really comfortable when you do that," or "I don't like when you," whatever. Just take a minute, and if somebody loves you enough to give you that feedback, just sit with it for a second. Like maybe there's something to learn.
Right.
Especially and so I think
it triggers you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the growth of the midlife, right? That's part of growing up. And I feel like you asked about like values and like that path and stuff. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, I don't ever want to grow up. I want to continue growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's what's required of our souls is continuous growth. And when people feel bored or they feel like life is just fine, but it's really not fine, and they beat themselves up because look at all of this that I have, how could I be bored? Like you were talking about how you felt.
Totally.
And so
yeah.
They come to that shame and guilt and like, how could I say this? Because look at what I have. It's the soul crying out for more, which is what a soul naturally does.
Yes. I think that's so true. And feeding and nurturing that soul is so fun. You talk about throwing a party, like that's so entertaining. My goal is to entertain myself all day long. I do it in lots of different ways, so I think that really is an enriching life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you were feeling that boredom, what did you do? What steps did you take? What did you seek out? Like, how did you get yourself out of that place to where you are now?
So I think you grab the low hanging fruit. I certainly did. And that's a lot of what I talk about in the book too, is like, just grab the low hanging fruit. And it sounds vain, but like sometimes all you can do is work on the outside for a minute before you're willing to look on the inside. So especially, and again, I say in the book, I can only relay my experiences, and it's no judgment on anybody's experiences, but if you can take something from my experience and apply it to yours, that's what I'm hoping for. So all I can do is speak from my experience, but I was at home. I didn't have to be somewhere on somebody else's schedule. I didn't have to show up a certain way for work. So, but just to get up in the morning and like throw on a little bit of makeup, put my hair in, do something with my very frizzy, curly, weird hair, put on some clothing that wasn't just, loungewear, start working out, just like sweating a little bit. So it was just those little things. And then I was like, well, okay, what used to make me happy when I was little? I loved horseback riding. Fine. I found a barn by my house. I started horseback riding. It was like, just whatever it was, just do it. I started writing. But all these things, like, they just piggybacked one after the other. And then all of a sudden you start feeling like human again, and you start getting curious again, right? And you're like, but I've always wanted to know about that, or I'm interested in that, or I want to learn about that. And so then I feel like you just sort of start blooming, and you start like recreating a life. And also, I think you and I have spoken about this before. I'm a fairly cynical human being. So please know that for these words to come out of my mouth makes like bile come up in the back of my throat. But being grateful for what you do have, and being present in those little moments that seem like nothing, but they're everything, is so helpful. So gross, be grateful, but it's true. I mean, the truth is, it really makes a difference. Yeah.
Speaking my language. Thank you. From a cynic, gratitude actually makes a difference. Awesome. I'm going to have to use that. And even in a testimonial.
You can. But I mean, just like things. So the mundane of my life, I started enjoying, right? Like one thing that comes to mind all the time is like doing the dishes. I feel like I'm constantly doing the dishes in my house, but I'm like, I think about things like, I'm so lucky to have hot water. It's important to me that my family has clean dishes. And I know that sounds really trite and really mundane, but when you start reframing just like the smallest things that you do for the reason that you do it, it really turns pleasurable. And I know when you're in a very like raw and dark place, somebody says that to you and you're literally like, go fuck yourself. But when you can get to that point, it's very soothing.
Yes. And it's actually more a reachable place when you are in a dark place. If you can go wash dishes, like, it's not about like going out and, singing the praises of life on the street corner because you're so joyful. It could be just enjoying a cup of tea and finding gratitude in, I have hot water for tea.
Yes, I agree. I just know that in my darkest time, and I would read a lot of those things, like it could not resonate because my defenses were up so hard, So I know that place too for people that are listening or reading, whatever.
Yeah. And that's what it is. It is about taking that one small step. What's the one small step you can take and starting from there?
Yeah, and just keep repeating it. Even if it's just one thing, just keep repeating that one thing. Then all of a sudden, two things might feel manageable. So, and that's the other thing. I think, like, as women, we're so like, I'm not going to just like do better. I'm going to take over the world. No. There's a lot of steps in between. There's a lot of things you can do. Little tiny things that you can string together that will make a huge difference. It's not all or nothing. And I write about that too. Right. It's like, there is a gray area. Not everything's black and white. Not everything's horrible or great. There's like a lot of in between. There's a lot of living and a lot of goodness.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much all of life, is that gray area.
Yes. So if you're always expecting like things are either good or they're bad, like that, you're not going to ever you don't know what happy is. Happy is not the absence of sadness. It's actually just be your baseline.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like courage is not the absence of fear.
Yeah.
I need to ask you about your current viewpoint of the propaganda around midlife. I don't know what other word to use for it, but I know you have come to an opinion about all of the talk.
So, Yeah. So one of the kindest things that my best friend said to me, she goes, you're just early. We're just early on this. Cause I started like, I feel like it kind of before it was a thing. Maybe I'm a few years older than Gwyneth or something. I don't know. But like I was talking about it and then all of a sudden like it's a thing, but the thing that makes me so frustrated is the thing is everybody wallowing in the bad part of it and like the commiseration. I think women do build community around commiserating. I just think it's like a weird natural
Mm-hmm.
proclivity that we have. So I feel like there's a lot of the complaining and not a lot of the doing and succeeding. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like everybody, highlighting all, I guess, the things that you could say are frustrating and challenging about midlife rather than accepting those and moving on.
Okay. So, yeah, about all of the emotions and the physical things that go with
I
midlife
mean,
versus the
yeah, it's like
opportunities to grow
yes,
into who you really are.
yes, or who you're going to be today because you get to be somebody different tomorrow if you want to be. But so, I mean, even I just feel like it's highly commercialized at this moment. I think it's like marketers have woken up to the fact that our demographic, like, we might have a little money in our pocket now and like we are, good buyers. And I just feel like we're really commercialized right now and kind of makes me angry. And also, like, all the talk about menopause as if there's like, as if some commercial, um, can fix that. Like I don't know, like I just don't feel like there's like like a holistic view to where we are in life right now and like the beauty and possibility. I just think there's a lot of fucking complaining.
There certainly is a lot of fucking complaining, but but isn't that how our society has? That's the direction that all of society has gone. It's like, hey, you can fix this with a pill. Like everything can be
Right.
fixed.
Right. And I think that
People are complaining about pain or discomfort or whatever, and it's like, oh, just take this pill and you'll be good. Like so that you don't have to feel the emotions or you don't have to do any internal work for it.
yeah, or I mean, I could really piss people off. Like, you don't want to do the hard work first.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the hard work is, uh, certainly, it's your mind, it's your body, it's your habits, it's your eating, it's your, like, there's all these other things that are solutions. And I think that people who can get paid want to give you something for one problem and don't look at us as like a holistic being.
Right. Yeah. We've never.
And I think and what makes me so like,
that way.
Yeah. And what makes me so frustrated, and I guess why I'm, raging in my book a lot is because I want everybody to wake up and stop buying into the bullshit. We're so much better than this. We're so much better than being reduced to menopause and, empty nesting and no purpose. Like, all these things exist as individual silos when they don't. Like, it all goes together. All these experiences, however yours line up, all contributed to who you are today and will all inform who you will be tomorrow. And there's, sure, there's things to be sad about and people are depressed and there's all those terrible things, but there's lots of different solutions besides somebody selling you something to fix it.
Right. Yeah. But come on,
except my book, I'm selling you that
easy button.
There is an easy button. That's the crazy thing is I think the easy button is the hard work. Like, that's what's fun.
Oh, but the hard work.
I think that's fun. No, it's actually really rewarding and fun. I know, but if you could change your mindset around it, it's entertaining.
It is. I agree with you. I'm just saying that most people are, where's the easy button? Can I just turn it on and watch TV and get...
So my grandfather used to say a funny thing. He used to tell me, like, when you're raising children, like, tell them they're smart, they will be. Like, tell them they're pretty, they will be. I thought that was like really interesting advice because I also don't think I was anywhere near childbearing age when he told me that. But anyway, I think it's funny because I feel like I do remember it. But I do feel like the opposite happens with a lot of the messaging around midlife is that they're telling you you're sad, you're depressed, you're angry.
Yes.
Your life is nothing if your children have left home. Your husband's cheating on you. You know, it's like you're fat. Like all you're like, I am. Right. You're validating all of my worst feelings about myself. They must be true.
You're all your good years are behind you. But you know what could fix it? Buy this. Buy this thing. And everything will be good.
Yeah, but it won't be. And you'll just keep buying something else because, well, that didn't work, so I'll just try something else.
Yes.
Right? So they just keep you on the hamster wheel. I just think there's a better way. I think you think there's a better way. I think we're offering a better way. I think we're setting an example as a better way. Like, this is supposed to be fun. I know bad shit happens out of your control, but mostly it's supposed to be fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, I think, when you just said about being an example for other people is the only way to, not the only way to live our life. I'm not living my life to be an example for other people, like specifically. And I don't think you are either. Yeah. You're living it to feel good yourself. But when we are living our lives this way, it gives other people permission to live their lives, to see what's possible. Just like when we were talking about, as you're growing up, you see what's possible by looking around. Same thing. We don't grow out of doing that. You look around.
See, I almost disagree with that. I almost disagree in a small part of that, in that the way I grew up, like I didn't even know, I can't even fathom what's possible. I still can't fathom what's possible. I think if you give yourself up to the idea that you know what the outcome is supposed to be, you completely limit yourself. Yeah. I think it's so much better than what you think it could be. Anything. It's not to say that there aren't failures or setbacks and stuff, but I don't even know what's possible, and that's exciting to me.
Yes. I was using it more as, you look at role models to see.
Right. They're so limiting though, right?
To set your beliefs about what you believe is possible. And then as you grow and expand, you find different role models or different examples of what could be. And that's part of this whole growth process. That's where I'm talking about. Like you look at what other people are doing and say, well, if they're doing that, I could do that. Or if that looks interesting, maybe I'll try that. Like when you're expanding what you're seeing, you're expanding the possibilities for yourself.
Yes. And I would almost say, like, give yourself the permission to just take like a buffet. A little nibble of what that person is doing looks exciting. A little nibble of what that person is doing is exciting. And then maybe you eclipse even what they have been able to accomplish. Who knows? I hope so for you guys listening. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right. So when is your book publishing?
So it is, the ebook is available for pre-order on Amazon. It's delivering, and the paperback is available for delivery on February 14th on Valentine's Day, because I feel like it's my love letter to women in midlife. I feel like it's a Valentine's Day present for you to give yourself or a bestie friend. And it's also a lovely way for you to commemorate my son's 12th birthday this February 14th.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So yeah, it's called Fuck This, Practical Advice to Get You Through Your Midlife Crisis. So you can pre-order it on Amazon, and you can actually buy it on Valentine's Day.
Awesome. So I think that means it will be available when we publish this.
Excellent. I know that weird future thing. I'm living in today, in this moment.
Yes, we are living in this moment. And I will have links to that in the show notes.
Thank you, Lori.
So make it very easy for people. Before we go, what is your hype song?
So it's funny, you warned me about this question, and I panicked, and I just picked something random so that I could be a good guest and answer. You know that silly song, all the boys come to the playground for my milkshake. It's called Milkshake. Yes. So I just put that down to be snarky. But I write about this in the book about your soundtrack. And I think your soundtrack, what you're playing, is so important. I think it's what we're talking about this entire conversation. So whether it's what you're watching, who you're modeling yourself after, what you're listening to is your soundtrack, and can put you in a really great mood or crappy mood. And the truth is that I mean, I love music, but when somebody else picks it for me, like I loved soundtracks growing up. My husband has a great music collection. My eldest son is a musician and in a band. Like I'll listen to anything, but I want to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And even like sometimes the wallow and the longing of music is great, but like don't be listening to that all the time if you're trying to have an energetic life, right?
Right. Well, music fuels your emotions and your energy.
100%.
It's actually, yeah, the frequencies.
100%.
How you
So
feel.
truthfully, like when I said my milkshake, it was a joke, but you know, anything Eagles, Allman Brothers, any kind of like Southern rock, that's what I love.
All right.
Led Zeppelin.
Cool. So when you're walking up to a stage to speak, is that what your walk-up song would be?
I mean, honestly, like I think the truth is I would have to do a lot of research because there's no song that is like my song, like my like favorite song is Beast of Burden, but that's not a walk-up song.
Yeah. All right. It's not your hype.
I don't know.
Hype song. Well, I think they could.
Maybe one day I'll be on a stage and I will call you and I will say, Lori, you'll never guess. Have been asked to speak at, and this is the song I've chosen. So I guess I'll report.
Okay. That. I will stay tuned. I will keep my phone on alert for that.
Okay, cool.
Kimby, thank you so much for joining us today on Fine is a 4-letter word.
Lori, thanks so much for having me. As always, it's so fun to talk to you.